Finally, Season 8 of Rick and Morty has arrived, and the first episode brings us a great story about the Matrix and the consequences of living a simulated life. Also, as always, there are a lot of interesting references. Today on Charlietales, we'll make a complete summary and analysis of the episode. Ready? Let's begin. The episode begins with Morty and Summer trapped in a simulation. This matrix was created by Rick, and he locked them in to punish them for taking his phone charger. That's why we see that the whole city has references to chargers. The goal was for them to learn a lesson, but Rick fell asleep, and the kids were trapped for years. 17 years. Summer has become a powerful businesswoman and uses her knowledge to escape the simulation with Morty. Upon waking up, Rick wants to erase their memories, but Summer cleverly calls her mother to stop him. The episode basically deals with Summer and Morty returning to their normal lives, but with 30-year-old minds. Summer tries to connect with her mother since both are now adults, but this relationship quickly falls apart. Morty is a more interesting case. During his years in the Matrix, he was arrested for stealing a charger. This led him to prison, where he spent his youth. In the prison, we see several interesting references, such as this poster that belongs to the movie 1 Million Years BC from 1966, but the woman has outlets on her chest. But many will actually recognize the poster from the movie, The Shawshank Redemption. Here, the protagonist escaped from prison by making a tunnel behind the poster, and right in Morty's prison, this inmate also has the poster in his cell. Morty's life was horrible until he met a man named CJ, who became his friend. Together they worked as firefighters and later became soldiers when a terrorist conflict broke out. During the war, Morty realized that he couldn't die because the simulation constantly revived him. This was traumatic because Morty was forced to watch all his friends die, even CJ. The way Morty constantly revives seems to be a reference to the movie Edge of Tomorrow, starring Tom Cruise. In that film, the protagonist is a soldier who revives over and over again. Back to the present, Morty has modified a supercar that Rick built a long time ago. Rick says he normally uses it for the death race. This is a reference to the classic 1975 movie. But this is where Morty's real plan begins. He uses a reverse charger to knock Rick out and trap him in a matrix. Morty's plan is to use the tank to destroy a nuclear power plant and wipe out cell phones from the world. His mind is disturbed by the war, and now he only seeks to create chaos. For her part, Summer also runs away from her mother and hides in a ceramics workshop in Santa Fe. Despite everything, Beth manages to convince Summer that being a teenager is a good thing. Rick is trapped in the simulation, but he manages to break it when he uses the people there as human batteries. This is an obvious connection with the Matrix, where the machines use people in the same way. We even see that Rick has created robots that are identical to the octopus machines from the movie. Rick's plan works, and he manages to escape. The stories connect when Summer shows up to stop Morty, and a big secret is revealed. When Summer was in the simulation, she became a powerful person and manipulated Morty to fulfill her purposes. To get out of the simulation, she needed a lot of energy, and the only way to get it was by stealing the world's lithium. For this goal, Summer manipulated the country. She created a fake terrorist group, led by a version of Osama bin Laden. With this, she managed to get the country into a war against the rest of the world. We can even see how Summer recorded fake terrorist videos. As a curious reference, the video's director looks a lot like Stanley Kubrick. This is a reference to a real-life conspiracy. Many believe that the United States never reached the moon, and that the moon landing video was directed by Stanley Kubrick. In fact, the whole idea of Osama bin Laden is a reference to the reality of the United States. Let's remember that on several occasions, this country has started wars to take oil from smaller countries. Summer did exactly the same. Back to the story. Summer used this supposed terrorism to provoke the war in which Morty participated. Summer knew they would win, since Morty couldn't die, so she manipulated him for years to achieve her goals. This episode shows us a rather dark version of Summer. She did all this for a selfish reason. They were trapped in the simulation because Rick fell asleep, but inevitably he would wake up at some point and would have taken them out sooner or later. But Summer didn't want this. If Rick woke them up, he would erase their memories immediately. The real objective of Summer was to keep her memories of the simulation. That's why she needed to wake up before Rick, and that's why she called her mother as soon as she woke up. The episode is a showcase of how brilliant and dark Summer can be when she wants to achieve something. Despite everything, she feels bad for what she made Morty go through, and she offers him the opportunity to erase his memories. So the episode ends with both of them erasing the past and going back to being teenagers. Before erasing everything, Morty got a tattoo in honor of his friend JC. That way he can have something of him even if he can't remember him anymore. On the other hand, Summer recorded a video message for herself. It was just a positive message about the maturity of being an adult. But teenage Summer doesn't care about this. She has gone back to being young and only cares about having fun and hanging out with her friends. The episode itself is rather simple, but it gives us brilliant explanations about our characters. First of all, Summer. Here she showed us once again how dangerous she is. In previous episodes, Summer has already shown great potential. For example, in the episode of the Night People, the evil Summer was the one who led the family. Morty also has enormous potential. In this episode, we saw how he managed to knock Rick out, and if he had wanted to, maybe he could have killed him. This reminds us a lot of how the evil Morty defeated his Rick. He also left him unconscious, and then was able to control him with technology. This episode also makes very clear what Rick's limits are. Many fans still think that he is an all-powerful guy, but this is not true. Rick can fail and be defeated with strategy. Summer and Morty proved it. In the beginning, Summer woke herself up from the simulation to be able to call her mother. She knew that Rick would never go against Beth, and that's why he allowed them to keep their memories. And Morty managed to knock Rick out because he let his guard down in front of him. Rick is always very trusting when it comes to Morty. He is his weakness. We already saw this in the story of the evil Morty, who got his Rick drunk to defeat him. We also saw this with Rick Prime, who was defeated by the evil Morty because he trusted him thinking he was a normal Morty. Morty has always been, and will always be, Rick's weakness. The episode in general is a demonstration of the consequences of living in a simulation. In many episodes of Rick and Morty, they have lived years in simulations, but almost always forget everything when they return to normal. This has quite trivialized the idea. But in this episode, they deeply explore how powerful it can be to live an entire life in a different world. Human beings are capable of creating relationships, friendships, and values wherever we find ourselves. Summer's plan was a desperate attempt to keep those memories and not lose that life. But unfortunately, she did horrible things to achieve it. I'm sure many people hated Summer in this episode. The episode, as always, has a post-credit scene. Here we see Beth sharing with the women of Santa Fe, but they reveal themselves to be vampires, who feed on blood to stay young. Beth defeats them without major complications. Let's remember that she has battle experience from so many adventures. The scene does not present major references or connections with the episode. That's all for today. If you liked the video, you'd really help me out by leaving a like. That would be legendary. Also, remember to subscribe to see more videos like this. Thanks for listening. My name is Charlie, and I'll see you in the future.